So, you've got a wild magic sorceress and a bard of glamour in your party. You've watched The Witcher on Netflix. Now, it's time to add one of those to your party too. Today we will be looking at how you can create your very own Geralt of Rivia, or your own Child of Surprise within the parameters of D&D 5e. First we'll be looking at how you can do it within the base game, plus the Wizards of the Coast add-ons, and then we'll be moving on to Homebrew afterwards, finally with my own sort of Homebrew in the end of it. I recently watched the Netflix show of The Witcher, and I'm now also replaying The Witcher 3 on my channel, and ever since then, I've been going, I want to play Geralt of Rivia all the time. It's then that I came up with the idea of, what if I could play him in D&D? So that's what we're going to be doing today. First up, we need to be looking at the race. Now, in the parameters of D&D 5th edition with the Wizards of the Coast stuff, I need to first remark that it's not just going to be base players' handbook rules. I would have to allow other books and rule sets, such as Xanthar's Guide, Volo's Guide, including the variant rule, which brings us on to race. I feel like the perfect races for Witchers in D&D 5e is either the variant human or an Aasimar. And these are the reasons. Variant human gets you the ability to have a feat from level 1, which is in itself amazing. Now, Witchers are known for being casters and swordsmen, so I would probably lean to take Warcaster at level 1, allowing you to get those spells off in close combat, which is perfect for a Witcher-style character. Other notable feats would be Great Weapon Master or Medium Armor Mastery, something that increases his combat ability, his or her, shall we say, because despite what a lot of people think, your Witcher doesn't have to be male. I'm just saying him because I'm mainly talking about Geralt of Rivia. The variant human, as well as gaining a feat at level 1, gets +1 in 2 ability scores of your choice, and you gain proficiency in 1 skill set of your choice, which can make for some interesting level 1 characters, but I also wouldn't suggest that we start playing a Witcher at level 1. To get the full Witcher kind of experience, you're looking at least a level 3 starting campaign, and if you're familiar with D&D, you're probably not going to be starting at level 1 anyway. But that being said, if you want to be maybe role-playing a Witcher who is slowly growing accustomed to their skills and powers, starting at level 1 could be a really interesting game too. Now, my second option for a Witcher in terms of race was an Aasimar, which is in Volo's Guide to Monsters, if you're not familiar. The Aasimar race, the main reason I would pick these is their resistance. Aasimars are one of the only playable races in normal D&D that start with a resistance, and the resistance they have is radiant and necrotic damage. Now, if you think about a Witcher in lore and in essence, a Witcher is a monster hunter who is super resistant to monsters, more so than a normal human. Therefore, being resistant to necrotic damage, the main damage type of the undead, it is the necromancy magic, it is the evil magic, if there is any in D&D. Being resistant to that makes sense for a Witcher. Radiant damage is just an added bonus. Just added resistance for a human. Other features of an Aasimar is they get the ability score. Their charisma score increases by 2. They also live longer lives, which Witchers tend to do. They have dark vision, which means you don't have to be lighting torches everywhere you go. You've got the better vision than a normal human, and you can see in the dark, which makes sense for a Witcher. You also know the light cantrip, and you have healing hands, which, aren't as Witcher lore friendly. They're still very good spells, and if you're kind of only making a pseudo Witcher and not going for hardcore, I want to be Geralt of Rivia, which isn't overly available to do in standard D&D, but you can get something close to it, I would possibly pick them. Another notable race, but again less lore friendly than say the human variant for a Witcher, would be a half-orc. Your strength increases by 2 and your constitution increases by 1, which makes you naturally a tougher fighter, and also you get the relentless endurance ability, which is when you are reduced to 0 HP, you are not killed outright, but drop to 1 HP instead, and you can't use that feature until a long rest. You also have the dark vision of the Aasimar, the same movement speed, but you do not have a very long life in terms of D&D. You tend to only live about 75 years, which while playing isn't going to be a thing. It just means you won't be able to get that Witcher lore friendly, I'm hundreds of years old sort of feel. Now that we've got race out of the way, the next thing that is going to be on everyone's mind is, well, what class is Geralt of Rivia? What class is a Witcher? And in base game D&D, I think there is only one main choice for at least your first couple of levels, and that is the Hexblade Warlock. Now everyone's going, but he's a fighter. Well, yes, but he's also a spellcaster, and I did toy around with the idea of Eldritch Knight for the fighter archetype, but I think Hexblade Warlock works better. Now let me tell you why I think the Hexblade Warlock is the best single class to meet a Witcher. Well, Hexblade Warlock's the perfect combination of sword fighter and mage. You get some really good spells and some good spells that, if you're going for a Witcher theme, you can say are Witcher signs. For example, Armor of Agathis, that can be your Quen. Or in fact, Shield, you can learn Shield from the Wizard Sorcerer sort of spell list, which, again, it's a perfect Quen. You also, at level 1, gain Hex Warrior, which you acquire the training necessary to efficiently arm yourself in battle. You gain proficiency with medium armor, shields, and martial weapons, which are essentially the main archetype of a Witcher. They wear medium armor and they have martial weapons. They use long swords instead of your strength and dexterity for attack rolls and damage, which means playing an Aasimar Hexblade Warlock to be your Geralt of Rivia with that bonus 2 to charisma you got as an ability score. Well, Geralt's going to be packing a punch, and that sounds right for a Witcher. They are meant to be stronger than the average man. They've gone through the mutagens. They are the perfect killer, and that will be a stacking type of damage. Furthermore, with a Hexblade, you're going to be wanting to take Pact of the Blade, and that can be your silver longsword. I really like the idea that you've got a silvered longsword, which only costs 100 gold pieces in D&D. So as a starting level 1 character, you can start with 2 longswords and then get 1 or a great weapon. You might want to go for a 2-handed sword. I would recommend a longsword instead though, because there's lots of things you can do, which we'll get onto later, with a 1-handed weapon or 2-handed weapon, and longswords being versatile, they can do just that. Plus it's more thematic that Geralt uses longswords, for example, rather than a great weapon. Because there is a difference. Taking back Pact of the Blade as a Hexblade Warlock means you can take Improved Pact Weapon. You can use any weapon you summon with your Pact of the Blade feature as a spellcasting focus for your Warlock spells. In addition, the weapon gains a +1 bonus to attack and damage roll, unless it's a magic weapon that already has that bonus to rolls. Meaning you can turn a normal silvered sword into a +1 silvered sword, essentially, just by being level 2. And if you wanted to spice things up and not be a close combat standard Witcher kind of character, with Improved Pact Weapon, that also includes short bows, long bows, light crossbows, or heavy crossbows. But that's just a bonus Pact of the Blade. Standard Pact of the Blade allows you to create a pact weapon in your empty hand. You choose the form that it is. Anytime that you create it, it will be that form. This weapon counts as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance, which again, fantastic for a Witcher, because then you don't technically even need to silver a weapon for it to attack undead and do full damage. Your weapon disappears from you if it's more than 5 feet away from you for 1 more minute, and you can transform one magic weapon into your pact weapon by performing a special ritual while holding the weapon. The ritual takes an hour and can be done in a short rest. So if you get a new sword that you want your Witcher to be holding, 1 hour short rest, and look, you've got the new swanky sword, and you could make it reappear and disappear at whim. Fantastic. On top of that, there are many spells in the Warlock spell list which I really feel witchery to me. Armor of Agathis being one. Eldritch Blast is less so, but it's useful to have a ranged utility that maybe a Witcher wouldn't have. Again, this is a Witcher-like character. This is how I'd play it. I'd play this character probably alignment. I'd play it Chaotic Good. Now, hear me out. Everyone, one of the main things about a Witcher is apparently they've lost emotion, which simply isn't true if you're looking at the case of Geralt of Rivia. He still feels and he still wants to be a knight in shining armor. He doesn't always take cash for the heroics he does in terms of killing monsters. He'll do it to save people. Which means I think he is more chaotic good than he is a true neutral. He wants to do good, but he's also out for himself. So I'd play a chaotic good, Pact of the Blade, Hexblade Warlock. At least for a couple of levels. To truly get my Witcher experience, I feel that I would have to, if your DM is okay with it, multi-class. Now, multi-class is an extra rule for D&D 5e. That's why I didn't start off by saying we're going to multi-class, because, yeah, it's not quite there. But Warlock, being your founding class, is fantastic. But also, Warlock is probably the best class in the entirety of D&D for multi-classing in and out of. It just works with everything. So, this is where I'd say your schools come in. Witches aren't all School of the Wolf, like Geralt of Rivia. There's School of the Cat, School of the Viper, School of the Griffin, School of the Bear. And in multi-classing, I think you can get that school flavour. School of the Bear. You multi-class into Barbarian. Get those extra resistances when you rage and be that tanky character. School of the Griffin, which is the more magic-focused one. Take some levels in Sorcerer or Wizard to boost your glyphs and spells. School of the Cats. Take some levels in Rogue. Or build a dex-based fighter as your bonus with dual wielding as your sword ability. Or if you wanted to go School of the Wolf, Warlock Fighter. It's a good combination. You can get dueling. This is where I said the longsword, because when you're using a dueling, you get the bonus AC when using a one-handed weapon. Or there is, otherwise, just defense. While wearing armor, you gain +1 AC. Your Witcher is going to be wearing medium armor probably from the start. Not only that, but you gain more abilities in close combat using a fighter. You get your second wind, action surge. You can be that magic fighter that you kind of always wanted to be. And hell, if you put enough levels into it, you could go Eldritch Knight or Samurai as a martial archetype, which will make that sword skill even better. The possibilities are kind of endless as long as you've got that Hexblade starter pack that we've kind of created. So that's it really for creating a Witcher-esque character in base game D&D. I guess it's not based just straight out of the player's handbook, and you are going to need extra modules, but if you can get those, your DM is more than likely to allow it. And if you get bored of playing a Witcher-based character, being a Warlock or other classes in D&D multi-classed with it, you still have the ability to go and do something slightly different than your Geralt of Rivia, something that maybe is limited by playing only a Witcher class. Now, Witcher class itself is the interesting point. We've done our base game D&D. Now let's look at homebrews, and there's been some great homebrews on the internet. I spent all of last night researching and reading them. Everyone's got their own different takes on it, and I think there's one major thing, which is the thing I'm going to come to at the end, which a lot of these miss if they're trying to make a more Geralt of Rivia based Witcher. But we're going to look at some of those now, and we're going to start off with my favourite, which is by someone by the name of Darren Scott. I will link all of these PDFs in the description down below for you to go look at yourself and read and possibly use. But he has an interesting take of making a Witcher subrace as well as a class. But it's not your normal subrace. They've put a lot of work into giving this backstory with the childhood deprived, the lore of surprise, and very Witcher lore focused backgrounds. They've also got a bit about dispassionate killers and the Witcher code and the mutants and the solitary lifestyles, everything you want from your racial descriptions. But they've actually got the ability here to play it as a race. So Witcher traits that come in this homebrew are dark vision. They have keen hearing and smell, which you can see on dog NPCs. Basically, you gain advantage on wisdom perception checks that involve smell and sound, which is perfect for a Witcher because they have the uncanny ability to be able to follow their nose or have their Witcher senses. And that's a good way in D&D to implement that. Languages. The languages you speak are determined by your subrace, which is something we'll get onto. Regeneration. Witchers have incredibly fast and strong metabolisms. Each hit die you spend during a short rest restores an additional 2 HP. And then your size and speed is determined by your subrace. Finally, you have Witcher Fortitude, which is you have resistance to poison damage. Additionally, you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. And then there is subrace. To really give it a D&D feel, the author of this homebrew has basically put out that you can be a Witcher from any of the main subraces of D&D. So if you're a Dragonborn, you keep your draconic ancestry, and you have to pick your breath weapon and dragon ancestry type from the player's handbook. You can play a Dwarf Witcher, which gives you your strength score increased, and you gain stone cutting. Whenever you make an intelligence or history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in history and double your proficiency bonus to check instead of the normal proficiency bonus. Elf, you keep your fey ancestry and you have the advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic cannot put you to sleep. And you also have the trance ability. You don't need to sleep and you still do your meditation. Gnomes, you keep your gnome cunning, and you have advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic. Half-elf, you get the Fey ancestry and you still keep your skill versatility. You gain proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. Half-orc, you get the relentless endurance, which I was saying in my original making a Witcher in basic D&D is perfect for a Witcher kind of character. Halflings, you keep lucky and your Halfling Nimbleness. If you don't know what lucky is, if you roll a 1 on an attack roll or ability check or saving throw, but not weapon attack, you can re-roll the die and must choose a new roll. Halfling Nimbleness is you can move through the space of any creature that is a size larger than yours. Human, you get the ability score increases for humans, which is 1 ability score of your choice is increased by 1. And Tiefling, you get hellish resistance, you have resistance to fire damage, and Infernal Legacy, you know the Thaumaturgy cantrip. Now the weakest of all those I think is actually the human, because they get the ability score increase from the human variant. I would say that I would give, as a DM, I would give a human Witcher the ability to take a feat at level 1, rather than the 1 ability score increase, because that feels very underpowered compared to everyone else getting some sort of special ability. And it kind of leans in this guide almost to not playing a humanoid Witcher, like a human-based Witcher, like the books, the games, the TV show. So I'd say bring back the human variant and give them the feat with that. So that's the Witcher race done for this guide. And then there's the Witcher class, which is really, really, really in-depth. They've got the different types of starting equipment, including your silver weapons if you want one, or there's all your proficiencies. Interestingly, you don't start with proficiency in medium armor, that comes in a moment. You start with light armor, simple weapons and martial weapons, tools, herbalism kit. Your saving throws are dex and strength, and you can choose 2 skills from Arcana, Athletics, Insight, Investigation, Nature and Perception. Oh, and Survival. Your hit points are 1d10 per Witcher level. Hit points at first level is 10 plus your Constitution modifier. Hit points at higher levels is 1d10 or 6 plus your Constitution modifier per Witcher level after first. So, like a fighter in this version of The Witcher, you pick a fighting style at level 1, which can be steel and silver. The preferred fighting style of Witchers. You can use your dexterity score when making attacks with long swords. You also gain a +1 bonus to your attack rolls with weapons with the versatile property, as well as a +1 bonus to your AC if you're using them with 2 hands. Now this fighting style, I think the perfect sort of thing for The Witcher. This is what I've noticed most of the homebrews don't have. This is the only one that does it, and this is something that I would definitely implement. Witchers are very dexterous fighters. They know how to move around enemies. Witchers' fighting styles are dance-like. They're agile, and they're not necessarily overpowering enemies. They're getting round their blades. So to use a longsword with a dexterity bonus instead of a strength makes a lot of sense to me. Other fighting styles are defense, which is straight from the player's handbook, dueling, straight from the player's handbook, great weapon fighting, and 2-weapon fighting, all of which are in the player's handbook. I won't go too far into this. Medallion. Witchers wear silver medallions shaped like the heads of the animals their school is named after. At first level, you're able to utilize the medallion to pick up nearby magical energies as an action. You can check the status of your medallion. When you do so, your medallion lets out a soft hum if you are within 30 feet of an aberration, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fey, fiend, giant, monstrosity, ooze, or undead. The medallion also responds if you are within 30 feet of a magical effect. Neither the location, type, nor any other information is had about the presence. You just know they're there. You can use this feature up to 5 times before finishing a short or long rest. If you lose your medallion, you can create a new one with 3 days' work, spending 8 hours each day on creating the medallion. It also requires 100 GP worth of silver material. Now that I really like. It's kind of like a detect undead or one of those sort of spells, but non-specific, which a witcher would have and would know, and I think I love that as a mechanic. It makes the character very interesting as like this sort of mysterious tracker as well. And the main thing, I think, looking at a lot of these Witcher homebrews, you could repurpose them and not call them Witchers if you're a DM and put them into your campaign in one way or another, or elements from them. Selling that medallion as a magic item, as like as an uncommon magic item, so the 100 to 500 GP range magic item, that could be really interesting and versatile for your party to use. Witcher School. Choose one school whose teachings you embody as you grow more powerful. Griffin, Bear, or Cat. All are detailed after the base class features. Your choice grants you the bonus proficiencies at 1st level, as well as special features at 3rd level, again at 7th, 11th, and 15th. Additionally, each school has a bonus spell for you to choose from. Now, this is an interesting one. The amount of detail this person's gone into for their Witcher lore and their crafting and such, and the class making, they've missed the Wolf School of Witchery, which is what everyone's going to want to play your Geralt of Rivia. So if you want to play a Geralt of Rivia, you might have to do some mix and mashing from this guide and other guides. And that's what I'd encourage with all homebrew if you are wanting to get the perfect Witcher experience for you. The main reason I said this one's my favourite is because it goes into details with a race as well as a class, but as for an actual Witcher class, we'll get onto that later with another person's homebrew that I kind of prefer some elements from. I kind of like elements from this, and if I was wanting to be a Witcher and my DM was okay with it, I would want to kind of create my own homebrew out of some of these, mash them together and see if my DM is okay with it, as long as it wasn't too overpowered, because balancing with homebrew is always going to be the difficult thing. Now, I can easily see where a Witcher is going to fall down, is that they have very limited spells, which means they're going to fall off a little bit late game unless the player is smart, and I'll talk about that again in a moment. I won't go too detailed into the Witcher schools, you can read them yourself in a moment. They do have their own flavour, but what I've noticed about this guide in particular is it is trying to fit. So they're trying to make a Witcher fit into already existing parts of D&D rather than including a Witcher into D&D. It's all of the skills are variants of other skills, or the spells don't use the spells from the Witcher. They're using the spells that already exist in D&D. So it's almost a Witcher variant kind of thing for D&D. But the one thing I will talk about that this person does really well is the crafting element. Crafting is a major thing. Your potions, your oils, your bombs. So when you reach second level, you learn to apply your knowledge of alchemy to the creation of potions and bombs. The Witcher table shows how many alchemical formulae you know under crafts known. All crafts are created using the herbalism kit. Unless otherwise mentioned, a component pouch can also be used to satisfy all ingredient requirements. However, each item crafted requires regular attention to maintain. You can only carry a limited number of crafts, and it is also indicated in the Witcher table. You can carry up to 2 of each specific craft. For example, you can carry up to 2 swallow potions. All of your expended crafts are replenished upon completing a long rest. Completing a short rest will also replenish a single craft. Crafts are divided into 3 categories: potions, bombs, and decoctions. Each of these crafts is described in their own section of this document. Additionally, each time your known number of formula increases, you can choose one of the known crafts and replace it with another from the Witcher list. So, this author then goes on to talk about all the different crafting. So you've got the potions, the bombs, and this author, unlike other ones, hasn't gone full out. They've picked a select few and they've tailored them better to D&D. I really like some of the decoctions and potions in this. They feel like they fit. This whole crafting section is the replacement for spells, essentially, for the Witcher class. It is where their make or break area is in terms of this is how you're going to be standing up to the level 20 sorcerer if you're a level 20 Witcher. This is what makes you unique to all other classes in D&D, and I'd really give, if you're picking a Witcher to play, definitely go and read up on the individual spells, and especially as a DM. If you're a DM and you've got a player that wants to come in and play a Witcher, definitely go and check out this potions and bombs section. It can make and break the character in terms of it being overpowered or underpowered, and don't be afraid to mix and match from multiple homebrews. I've already said this, but this is the part that's going to be the biggest to tweak, and I'm not going to go into all of it, but I would say definitely go and read it. Obviously, links are in the description down below. Next up is the Witcher homebrew by Yolo the Dwarf. This homebrew for the Witcher is a bit more concise than the other 2 that I'm going to be looking at. I'm only going to go through some of the more intriguing or standout points for this one, because a lot of these homebrews do begin to repeat themselves in certain areas, and I definitely recommend you go read them. But interesting things that this one does: you have Monster Hunter, you have a deep knowledge of various creatures and monsters and how to hunt them. When you attack a non-humanoid, non-celestial creature, you deal extra damage equal to your proficiency modifier. The reason I like that is they're using the proficiency modifier, which is that is the D&D way of saying how trained you are at something, or how experienced you are as a person. So for a Witcher to get bonus damage on due to their experience and their experience fighting, that makes a lot of sense to me. The other thing I really like from this one is the second level signs. Instead of using base D&D spells, they've warped some of them and created signs from the Witcher. And you have Witcher sign uses column, like spell slots in normal D&D, and you have a sign save, which is 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your intelligence modifier. So interestingly with this, your saving throws are constitution and intelligence, and the primary stats I'd actually want to take with this specific Witcher kind of type is intelligence and strength, which in terms of stats I don't think are necessarily the Witcher's kind of main stats if you're implying them into D&D. I do love their signs like Ard. All creatures in a 6 meter 20 foot line must make a strength saving throw against your save DC, or on a failed save they are pushed back 3 meters 10 feet. Axie, you cast Charm Person. Igni, you cast Burning Hands. Quen, when you are hit by an attack, you can use your reaction to create a shield of static energy around your figure, gaining resistance against bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage dealt by that attack. You must use the sign before knowing the damage you suffer by the attack. So it's kind of like a mix of reaction shield as the spell and rage, or Blade Ward, and I really like that for Quen. You've got Som, you cast Sleep, and Yerden, you conjure a luminescent 3 meter, 10-foot radius circle on the ground within 3 meters, 10 feet of you. A creature must attempt to make a wisdom saving throw when enter the sign's area for the first time. On a failed save, its area is affected by the slow spell, which is, if you know the slow spell, it's pretty good. It limits the actions of a creature, their movement speed is slowed, and that's almost overpowered, but at early levels you're going to have a low DC, so it's not going to be too bad, and it's only one area. DMs, you can have creatures just avoid that area if they're intelligent enough, for example. It's also concentration and lasts only up to 1 minute, and using another sign breaks that concentration. The author of this one also includes mutagens, bombs, potions, and they go less into... They don't have as big of a whopping list which you can go through. It's very limited and concise, which I think this sort of Witcher class is one that you could multi-class into. This is what it feels like. It doesn't feel like a straight, you should only play this for all 20 levels. This feels like something you pick as, like, you take this for 10 levels and take another 10 in Fighter to make this work properly, because it kind of feels limiting in areas. Also, the schools in this work very much the same, with some very different flavors. They do include, this homebrew does include Witcher schools. It has the School of the Bear, the School of the Cat, the School of the Wolf, and the School of the Griffin, as well as School of the Viper. So it's got the main ones, and they all have their own unique flavor to it. School of the Viper, interestingly, gets Sneak Attack. And if you multi-class that with a rogue, that would be potent. But I definitely recommend giving this one a read. Out of the 3 that I'm proposing today, this is probably my least favourite, but there's some useful things that I would take from this one and put into others. The final Witcher homebrew I'm going to be looking at is the one made by Mazzetti and Sea Shark on Reddit. There is some really, again, interesting features from this. These guys, again, have their own variant of the Witcher Medallion, for example, and they have Witcher Schools as a third, which give you a bonus from 1st, 3rd, 7th, and 10th and 17th level, respectively. They've also... But the main thing I like from this homebrew is the way that they do signs, more so than the other 2 completely. They work signs like sign points, more like sorcery points, and if you've played a sorcerer before and you know managing those. Signs cost different sign points, and to cast them, it works like a spell, and they've also got a sign save that's very similar to the previous sign ability. Again, with this class, they tend to make the Witcher lean towards strength and intelligence, which again I don't feel is right for a Witcher. I would always say that a Witcher uses, unless it's a School of the Bear Witcher, it would use Dex over Strength. That's why I really liked the first one with the silvered and steel fighting style. That's exactly how I'd want to play a Witcher. But I do love their versions of the spells here, and they also have enhanced spells for the signs. So if you pick certain schools, some of your signs will be enhanced, or the amount of enhanced signs you'll have. And also they've got the fact that the School of the Bear, if you're going to read it out, which I found was a really interesting point. The School of the Bear at 2nd level. When you learn signs at 2nd level, your respect for free will prevents you from learning the signs Axii and Yerden. You instead learn the Moda sign, which creates a wall of icy stone to block your enemies. And that combination, the Bear School with the Moda sign, and some of the abilities you get later, can become super, super overpowered. I've never known a base class to have so much AC. So DMs, if you are going to allow a Witcher and you want to use this type, definitely have a look at that and make sure you're okay with the ability that a base character without magic items can have 22 possible as an AC, depending on your stats. Yeah, there's some interesting doohickeys there, and another thing I like about this one more so than the other ones is their potions and bombs seem a bit more balanced. They've got a much bigger range than all of the other all of the other homebrews, but they feel more balanced, and the way they create the potions and such isn't through the components pouch. It's specifically killing monsters or going and buying specific monster parts, which I feel is more balanced for the economy of D&D. Being able to create certain overpowered decoctions just on the ability of having a components pouch feels, at least for the first time, I can understand them being able to be topped up with the components pouch, but an outright build them without, fighting the monster as a Witcher would feels a little bit overpowered to me and would help balancing, and that one does it the best. At the beginning of this video, I said I'd make my own homebrew and make my own kind of Geralt of Rivia. And the way I'm going to do that is by combining these 3 homebrews and taking the bits I kind of like and I feel that balance the character a bit more. So first, turning to the Darren Scott Witcher homebrew, we're going to be building a Witcher from his Witcher race. I'm going to be picking a humanoid sub-race Witcher, and in addition to the bonus 1 to an ability score, I'm going to be picking Dex for my ability score bonus. I'm also going to be taking the feat Warcaster. I want to take the steel and silver fighting style from that same homebrew. I think that makes the most sense to me, and also that allows me to use my Dex, which I've just put a bonus in, for my close combat fighting. I also love Darren Scott's version of the Medallion, so that's the Medallion that I'm going to pick. But it's when we get to Witcher schools and the spell casting, I'm going to move to a different homebrew. Like Darren Scott's homebrew, I would bring the crafting in at level 2 in terms of potions and bombs, but I would use the majority of the crafting list from our final homebrew, the one by Mazzetti and Sea Shark. A lot of that feels balanced, but in essence, I would get the 2, put them side by side, pick the ones you. As a DM, this would be down to your DM, not the player. I would put them side by side, look at them, and basically mix and match for the most balancing, or how you feel your game would be balanced. Because at the end of the day, the DM's got to be the one that confirms your ability to play this. As much as you might want to play this Witcher, if it's too overpowered, the DM can just go, nope, that's just going to break my game, I'm sorry. And if you're too overpowered, it will ruin the party dynamic. You can do all sorts of things. So DMs, definitely go and check those lists out if any of your players are intending to play a Witcher. It would be, again, sticking with this 3rd homebrew, that I would go for the ability to use signs over using standard magic from D&D. However, like I said beforehand, if your DM's not okay with a true Witcher, using that first homebrew, which implements magic from standard D&D, is probably your best bet. But I prefer the way that the magics and the enhancement of signs work in this final homebrew, and it really feels more Witcher lore friendly. Moving on to level 3 and picking your Witcher school, I would actually take the School of the Wolf, if we're trying to get as close to a Geralt of Rivia anyway, from Yolo the Dwarf's homebrew, our middle homebrew. I really liked his Monster Hunter bonus, so we're going to throw that back in as well, getting that extra damage down to your proficiency bonus. And then School of the Wolf from this guy. Favorite weapon. Choose a weapon you are proficient with. Of course, we are going to be using our steel and silvered weapon fighting style. So picking that, we're going to be picking our longsword. Choose a weapon you are proficient with. You deal an extra 1d4 damage with that weapon. Brilliant. The Witcher class, it really feels like that you shouldn't be able to change your weapon from your starting weapon in terms of standard steel, standard silver. That is what they're trained to use. Adding extra magic items into the mix, yes, it would make more D&D flavorful, but you want to be able to go up against the biggest monsters that you want to fight, the wyverns, the dragons, with your normal weapon and be skillful enough to hurt them. So do that extra 1d4 damage on top of the d10, basically turning it into a 1d4 plus 1d10 damage every time you roll with the steel and silvered weapons respectively. Makes a lot of sense for the Witcher. Focus signs. At 7th level, when you cast a sign, you can choose to inflict disadvantage on saving throw against all targets. You cannot use this feature again until you complete a long rest. That feels great. Eye of the Hunter, 13th level. Once per round, when you hit with a melee weapon attack, you double your Monster Hunter bonus damage. And then finally, at 20th level, Master Hunter, you gain advantage on saving throws and spells, and any special ability possessed by creatures that trigger your Monster Hunter feature. So that's how I would build my very own Geralt of Rivia, or Gerald of the River Dance as I've called him here. This video has been my first foray into discussing D&D outside playing it. I play D&D once a week on this channel, and I DM a Call of Cthulhu games on Saturday. Both are currently on their winter break. If you want to see more D&D content from me like this, where I explore homebrews, build characters, I've tried to do kind of all of the above in one jam-packed video here, which is probably going to come in at about half an hour. So if you've stuck around to the end, also thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like down below. I've been Midgeman. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye. Thank you to Primarch, Andronis, Soapy Threat, Robert Strader, Christopher Cook, and Marshall Rommel for being my top patrons of this month, as well as to all the other patrons who've decided to give me their hard-earned cash whizzing by on the screen right now. What's that, Mr. Emu? People aren't subscribing, but they're watching the video still? Ah, well, why not get in the Christmas spirit and subscribe, because that's a Christmassy thing to do, apparently. Anyway, I've been Midgeman, and I will see you in the next video. Merry happy fucking Festag!